Hey friends, Mrs. Grizzle here. The following video that you're about to watch was made by my dear friend and fellow teacher, Mrs. Stowe. She's brilliant. She got a master's degree in psychology, and if you guys ever want to talk to her about that, please do. She's just down the hallway from me, and she's wonderful. As you watch, be sure to jot down some notes in that packet that you got from Google Classroom and answer any questions that you might have in the space provided. Guys, enjoy this. It's very cool. We're going to use it a ton throughout your the rest of your high school career. And I really hope that you spend some time thinking about how this could apply to your life as well.
Hello students, it's Miss Stowe. I'm so excited to be with you today, and I'm very excited to share with you this lesson. Today I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite things in life and in literature that I think is really just a helpful concept that we can apply to our own lives, to all the books that we read, and to really dive into characters. So here we go, A plus B equals C, and not just in math class. Today I'm going to talk about something called cognitive behavioral psychology. That is a really big term. It was one of my favorite things that I learned in my master's in counseling, specifically because of how easily it can apply to school. Ultimately, what this is something, it's kind of like a formula, a way to step back and to think through some of our ideas and our beliefs, other characters' ideas and beliefs, other people's ideas and beliefs, and how that impacts us. So it's going to help you understand ourselves, what we do, other cultures. It will help you analyze characters, especially the ones you don't understand. It is at the heart of influence and character development, and it's a large part of social emotional intelligence. So if you ever struggle with why do people do this, I don't understand, it's a way to kind of break that down for you. So here's it as simple as possible, although it's very deep and there's a lot of things to add to it. I'm going to break it down. So action plus belief equals consequence. Action is something that happens to you, something that you have no control over in this scenario. The belief is obviously the B, how you view the world. The more detailed and intricate you make that, the more accurate the consequence will be in terms of the true connections. And lastly, consequence, that's the outcome when these varying beliefs are combined with an action. So let's give it a few examples. Action, on the way to a job interview, your car breaks down. Go ahead and pause and just take like 1 minute to think about what would a belief be that you or someone else has about that. These are some of the beliefs that have come up over the years that students have shared. Maybe they have that karma, what goes around comes around. Maybe they feel like everything bad always happens to me. They might believe in a higher power and say, you know what, God or this higher power doesn't want me to have this job. There's a purpose in this happening. Maybe you have a strange belief that strangers are trustworthy. Or maybe you're like, there's no fate. I can make anything positive. I'm gonna go get it. I'm gonna figure this out, problem solve. Now we've all met people who have these beliefs. Now the consequences with this action of each of those beliefs is very different. The first person maybe feels frustration, tries to think of what they did that maybe caused this come around. Oh, I should have tipped the server better. I should have been nicer to my parent this morning or my sibling. I need to up that. The second person often feels pretty sad, right? They spend a lot of their life kind of feeling like nothing works out. There we go. Kind of depressed, bummed. Next individual might walk away. It's all right, there's nothing I can do, or something else will come up, and generally feel okay about it. The next one's interesting because that person might try to hitchhike to the job, right? If you believe strangers are trustworthy, maybe you reach out and you get help from a stranger. And the last one might find a solution. I'm going to call the boss, explain the situation. What can I do about this? Can I reschedule my interview? Kind of problem solve. Now on to literature, right? We have to understand the personal part before we can understand literature. But literature is all about this characterization and how we will understand what's happening, whether we even like the books or not. So applying this formula and these ideas to literature and new ideas is going to help you do several things. One, it's going to help you understand new perspectives and why you may agree or disagree. It's going to help you look at actions that are occurring outside of your world that you see on social media or in the news or in other countries and go, what is driving this? It's going to help you break down big ideas into manageable chunks, right? To take this character or to hear about this and to like say, okay, how do I break this down? And how do I understand what's happening by evaluating what the character's choosing? Wow, they made this choice, like what belief made them make this choice? And it's going to allow you to study not just the content, the what of a novel, but the purposeful style or the how elements. Like, how is the author building in this characterization that then shows this consequence that leads to this overall theme or message? So if you struggled with any of those pieces, you'll be able to break it down. This is going to be especially important this year in world literature. We've mentioned a few times that, in terms of scaffolding, right, you've had U.S. history and U.S. literature and, in 8th grade and in 6th grade and in 4th grade, you're kind of studying all of that. And for the first time, you're going to read books from authors that don't come from a background that you do. Or you're going to read your first author that you're like, oh, I get this now. And so understanding those beliefs are going to help you understand the story. Characters, great example. This lens for studying characters will help make the character become more alive and a round character instead of one you just get like frustrated with. Why did they do that? I don't get that. It's going to reveal character development and author talent. That also is going to show up with like plot holes. So for example, Pirates of the Caribbean, loved the movies. Don't judge if you love number 2. But in the second one, you see characters make the same mistakes they made in the first one. Does that show an inadequate character development? Or does that show that the character never actually learned their lesson, right? Or does that show a naivety? Like, what does that mean when that cyclical thing happens? It's going to reveal character motives, right? So this character believes this, but maybe does this. And anytime you see a dissonance or a dichotomy between those two, you're going to be able to kind of guess where things are headed in the novel. It's going to help the reader apply and connect to stories. This is so important. If learning isn't real to you, then it's hard to get it to stick. And that's the goal, is that you walk away from every book or every lesson, or at least once a semester, with something that's going to stick, that makes you think about life or people that you can take with you to make that learning your own. And then obviously get at that human theme, the underlying pieces, and the author's purpose of the novel. I'll give you an example. Santiago in The Alchemist. You want to turn to pages like 3 through 9. I'll show my annotations. So going back to that, you'll see a little bit of that. And I'm just going to read these parts to you. Okay. So Santiago starts off at the very beginning, page 3. And it says this at the bottom. He swept the floor with his jacket and lay down, using the book he had just finished reading as a pillow. He told himself that he would have to start reading thicker books. They lasted longer and made more comfortable pillows. All right, so I look at that, and I'm like, okay, so he's using a book as a pillow. He can read. This is a big deal. As we find out for other pieces, he's kind of grown up in the country. At this point in time, not a lot of shepherds knew how to read. So that has to tell us something about him. He's not concerned or worried about the challenge of a larger book. And he's very practical. How do I use it as a pillow, and how do I use it as entertainment? He doesn't seem to be worried about carrying it all around with him. Now compare that to the girl's attitude. She's at the bottom of 5 to 6. It'll be a little different in a few translations. He's talking with this girl. He's a young teenage boy, so he's interested in this girl. He's trying to talk to her. And she says, "How did you learn to read?" the girl asked at one point. "Like everybody learns," he said, "in school." "Well, if you know how to read, why are you just a shepherd?" The boy mumbled an answer that allowed him to avoid responding to the question. Notice that this gets into like the societal understanding and the societal beliefs at this time. This girl's like, well, if you can read, why would you just do this? If you have this talent or this ability, you should go do this. Should, which shows up in a lot of our various cultures. If you have this ability, you should do this. Why wouldn't you go after this and just travel? Right? We see that's part of his struggle as a character, is he wants to go do these things and people keep telling him he should be choosing something else. So this helps us get into Santiago and society within the first 6 pages just by pausing about that. And that's going to kind of put little seeds for this larger theme. Now let's talk about his desire to travel. There's a huge part of this book that leads him into his adventure. Him and his father have a conversation on pages 8 and 9. At the bottom it says of 8, he wanted to travel. People from all over the world have passed through this village, son, said his father. They come in search of new things, but when they leave, they are basically the same people they were when they arrived. They climb the mountain to see the castle, and they wind up thinking that the past was better than we have now. They have blonde hair or dark skin, but basically the same as the people who live right here. It's a father's belief. Like, everyone's the same around the world, so therefore, why go see it? But I'd like to see the castles and the towns where they live, the boy explained. Santiago is trying to explain that he still wants to understand. He still wants to see the world. He wants to take that knowledge his father has and make it his own. Those people, when they see our land, say that they would like to live here forever, his father continued. Well, I'd like to see their land and see how they live, said his son. The people who come here have a lot of money to spend so they can afford to travel, his father said. Amongst us, the only ones who travel are the shepherds. You can see each character kind of building their argument based upon their beliefs. Santiago is that he wants to go into the world and experience and see things, which, as we tie to the hero's journey later, makes a lot of sense. The father giving all of his reasons why he doesn't need to go, which are also valid. Well, then I'll be a shepherd, Santiago explains back. His father said no more. You should see this switch that happens in his father. You should notice that. They're having a dialogue between the two. Santiago says, well, if the only people that can travel are shepherds, then I'm going to do it, right? We learn a lot about his character through that. He's not afraid, just like with the book. He is going to push forward. And we also see a lot with his father's character in this novel and how his father functioned versus the father in Siddhartha. Note that for later. The father said no more. The next day, he gave his son a pouch that held 3 ancient Spanish gold coins. That's a big deal. The father is entrusting something to him. I found these one day in the fields. I wanted them to be part of your inheritance, but use them to buy your flock. So he is offering Santiago a choice. He's saying, this is my plan for you. But if you're going to do this plan, here you go. Take to the fields, and someday you'll learn that our countryside is the best and our women the most beautiful. So the father did not change his original belief, but he is changing how he's allowing Santiago to learn. And he gave the boy his blessing. We learn a lot about Santiago's background, the relationship he has with his father, the relationship he has with the world, all through their beliefs and how they go back and forth. And then that will play into the entire rest of the novel and set some seeds for the future theme.